Welcome back to the Whiskey and Wisdom podcast. I'm your constant co-host, Chris Kellum, and I'm with
Tyler, y'all.
As you know, he's the best of the best, making the mess. And our guest today,
Jason Minnocozzi, Cape Fear Criminal Defense.
Cool. I love when people reach out and we can get some fun dual-sidedness and grow our mindset. So we've had a DA on at one point, or an assistant DA, and now we get to interview somebody from the other side, I guess.
Yeah, and I've actually done both, and even before that was an assistant public defender. So other than judge, I've kind of served every role in the criminal justice system.
Oh, wow. It was funny because I was going through Instagram and I saw the giveaway for your hat. And I was like, I love the allegedly hat. And I've been wanting to get a criminal defense attorney on here. So I reached out right away. I was like, hey, would you be interested? It's because you seemed cool enough that would come onto a podcast and kind of talk about what you do and everything.
Absolutely. So. I was thrilled. Started following you guys and wasn't hyper aware, but you guys have a very high production quality video right out of the gate, so it was intriguing to see, and certainly any invite to kind of spread the word about business is always a great opportunity. But I've been in the community a long time, and so I'm brought you guys some hats. Hope you guys enjoy them, and those have been a huge hit. It's just a random thought I had, and it's always like that. Your best laid plans never really work out, but it's the ones that kind of just pop in your head, and people have been clamoring over those, so we're grateful to bring them in.
Yeah. That's cool. So there's another podcast I listen to, the PBD podcast, Patrick Beck David. And I don't know if they got in trouble or if someone else got in trouble legally, but their big thing is once they make a claim, they're allegedly. And so they make it really big.
Allegedly.
Yeah, it's allegedly.
I mean, I think both sides use that word probably more than any other one. Maybe the only other common word would be guilty or not guilty.
Yeah, true.
That is such a hard question.
Guilty or not guilty?
Yeah. Because in my head, we'll get into this later, but I always laugh because it's that's what you're proving. It's not whether or not they're a bad guy or they did something wrong. Mm-hmm. Can you prove it?
Yeah, and I think, having been on both sides, I was a special victims prosecutor for a long time, did violent crime, mostly homicides, when I was the chief assistant district attorney in Whiteville, Columbus County.
Oh, wow.
And, I mean, the reality is there's a very thin line between being the victim and being the defendant in a lot of these cases, especially when you're dealing with violent crime. Yeah. Narcotics, little less, flip side of things. But one of the favorite lines I like to give, which is a little bit, criminal defense kind of slimy, but the reality is just because you did it doesn't mean you're guilty.
Right. The
state of North Carolina has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt every single element of every single crime that they've alleged.
Yeah.
Right. They can't always do that.
True.
Mm-hmm.
Which
I want to follow up on that too, but before we get too far into it, Chris, what are we sipping on with this Penelope?
So, as y'all know, we like Penelope on this podcast. Mm-hmm. I was wandering through the Bourbon liquor store. Gorgeous new spot. Yeah, it's only 2 years old, newly built, kind of like the updated ones we have around
Phenomenal store. Beautiful.
Yeah. I was surprised. I was like, oh, this is fancy looking.
As nice, if not nicer, than any of the ones we have in Wilmington.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Which it threw me off because I expected it to look like the one that's in Rocky Point.
Oh,
in the strip mall, and you're sneezing. You've walked through the whole thing already. But this is gorgeous. I was walking around looking, and I was like, oh, you have Penelope Project X. And apparently Pender County did their own barrel pick of a Project X. Project X pieces are... They actually take unique cask, and then they do a specialty finish. They do Oloroso sherry cask, a PX sherry, or a cognac cask, and then they'll take their signature 4 blend, and then they'll put it in there and let it rest and get a little bit more flavor to it. You can always tell the Project X because it's in that clean black bottle, and it's kind of fun checking them out because if every county does a different one, it's kind of like a totally different barrel pick. This will be the 5th Project X one I've had, and they all taste drastically different, even if they're labeled sherry cask or PX. So
this is delicious.
It is really
sip
good.
And let's enjoy some whiskey. Cheers, fellas.
Cheers.
Now you got to sip because you did cheers.
Oh, sorry.
It's bad luck not to.
Mm-hmm.
True.
Ooh,
That's good.
that is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
There's a
It's
lot
not
of,
the typical.
What are those
sherry
notes you're tasting? I'm never good at that. I have to cheat and look it up.
Oh yeah, I'm horrible.
Leather, tobacco, bark.
I should have brought the sniffing kit in. I have it in my
should have.
car.
I mean, it's definitely some spices. You can taste that sherry because it's a little bit like that little bit of fruitiness on the back, but it's a nice like smooth coating.
For sure. It's got a good smooth mouthfeel. Is that
Yes,
what they
Exactly.
usually say?
You're on it.
I mean, you guys know me. I love the Rio, which is definitely a like spring, early summer. This to me is definitely we're gonna go September,
I was gonna say
early
more
fall, because you're still kind of warm but not too hot flavor wise, and this is just a good just kind of like transitional drink. But yeah, now that we're done talking about some whiskey, which we'll check in on the back end of the podcast.
There's something that I wanted to throw up since we were just talking about it before talking about the whiskey.
Yeah.
It's that just because you did doesn't mean you're guilty. I don't know how much you follow other like criminal trials going on in the United States.
Oh, yeah.
The one that I'm following right now is Corey Richins in Utah.
Tell me a little bit more about it.
So this one is allegedly she poisoned her husband with fentanyl.
Yes.
So I've been following that, and when you listen to like the lead up of it and the story that the prosecution gave during the opening statements,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, she 100% did this.
Yep.
But now that it's like started like going through the trial, I'm like, she may have done it, but they have not proven it beyond a reasonable doubt yet. Like, I do not feel like if I was on the jury, I wouldn't feel comfortable convicting someone to life in prison with what they have shown so far.
And in many cases, they are forecasting what they believe over, the best version of what the investigation showed.
Good point.
So, for instance, whether it's a homicide or a drug case, having done this so long, for 16 years, early in my career, seeing things on paper, you'd be like, oh, man, how are we going to even challenge any of this?
Yeah.
This is going to be very difficult. Without perhaps maybe the exception when there's a confession or a really strong admission,
Right.
it's never, ever the same in the courtroom that's contained in that investigatory file, what we call discovery. Mm-hmm. So everything that the law enforcement does and collects, they turn it over to the DA's office. They in turn have to turn it over to us. But what's collected 2-3 years,
Right.
now, and then you're fast forwarding to a trial date 2 or 3 years down the road, some of those witnesses ain't around. Yeah. People kind of forget what happened.
Right.
Law enforcement officers, there's been a ton of turnover in the last decade, more so than I've seen in my career, where even they aren't around anymore. Maybe they've left the agency, or even more complicating, are no longer in law enforcement and less inclined to maybe come back. So, it's one of those things that something like 98, 99% of cases are resolved by plea.
Oh, wow.
And so the trial is the exception. And when you start talking about like notoriety, TV case, obviously those are, the top 1% of the 1%.
Okay. So that's question, because, I listen to like the littlest amount of criminal trial stuff. What's a plea?
So if you're accused of a crime, whether it's in federal court, state court, North Carolina specifically, there will be an opportunity 99 times out of 100 that the district attorney, the prosecutor, is going to offer you a deal, right? They can't try every case. There's no way they could. So they're supposed to kind of be responsible for their caseload. So a lot of times you'll have a narcotics prosecutor, a special victims prosecutor, property crimes prosecutor, homicide prosecutor. They got to move those cases, and the only way to move them is give some sort of deal. And sometimes those deals are not very good, and sometimes they're very favorable. And so trying to give your client the best estimate of what the worst case scenario would be, like their worst day in court, versus the plea, versus their best day in court, right? Those are the kind of like three spectrums.
Yeah.
Where do you see yourself? Where do you want to accomplish? Sometimes you have goals that I can't accomplish. Oftentimes they say, I'll take a dismissal. And I can't control that.
Of course.
And so it's like anything, a settlement, if it was civil case and you're talking about money, there's always going to be like an insurance offer
Right.
to try to resolve it without the necessity of a trial.
Okay.
And so in a murder case, you know, instead of facing life without parole, maybe you're offered 22, 25 years. If you're 23, 24, it's hard to conceptualize double what you've actually lived on this earth and the finality of life without parole. If you're convicted of first-degree murder in North Carolina, there's only 2 punishments: death and life without parole. And it means life without parole. There is no parole in North Carolina for those cases.
Oh, no way.
So if you're, 20-something,
Yeah.
it's that's a heavy thing to think about and make a decision on. But that's what we do every day. I mean, make those hard decisions or try to advise clients on those tough decisions that are almost impossible to make.
Wait, death is an option in North Carolina?
Oh, yeah, we're a capital state. And while we haven't actually executed anyone since, I think, 2006,
Okay.
There's probably people just sitting on death row.
there are a lot, and it costs a lot to litigate because, as I'm sure you guys are aware, I think most people are aware, North Carolina is one of the southern states that certainly had a history of and continues to have issues with racism.
Yeah.
And so Racial Justice Act in, I think it was probably 2015-ish, brought that back to everyone's attention that, the death penalty is often applied to black members of our community historically in a greater proportion than any other race or gender. It's usually male.
Right.
So it costs a lot to do those appeals, and rightfully so, because to take someone's life, the government doing it, they better make sure they're right. And we have seen statistically that they often are not.
Right.
So, sorry, that's
Heavy.
yeah, it's very heavy, but it makes sense, and it's understandable why someone like me who, knock on wood, I've stayed out of trouble, wouldn't think that we still have the death penalty because they haven't done it in so long. And I think it makes, like you said, there's a lot of cases where people are there, and are they there on purpose? Are they there correctly? So we can't just be killing people left and right. At least not.
And in this area, the southeastern North Carolina, we had, up until very recently, 2 twin brothers that were the elected district attorneys. One was New Hanover Pender, Ben David, his twin brother, my former boss. John David was in Brunswick Blade in Columbus. And so that whole chunk of southeastern North Carolina very rarely pursued the death penalty. It was an infrequent event, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
Right.
A lot of those cases are the most horrendous, violent cases that you can think of, above and beyond your traditional run-of-the-mill murder. If you know, for instance, the Southport shooting.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone, a mass shooting. Yes. A lot of folks often look at situations like that and say that that person deserves it. Yeah. But as you said earlier, a lot of these folks aren't bad people. They've made terrible choices. Mm-hmm. They were also almost always dealt a bad hand.
Yeah.
Mental health issues, substance abuse issues, poverty. It's a bad combination.
On a much lower end of that spectrum, that's what I tell my son all the time. I was like, "You're not a bad kid. You just made a bad choice today."
Absolutely.
It's same.
I have that conversation with clients all the time. I currently have, a caseload of probably 10 or 11 first-degree murder cases, a few second degrees, all types of trafficking cases. So there's different levels of punishment for all those things, but having the tough conversation with someone that's accused of murder and explaining to them, they could pursue this because early on in the stage, the state makes a decision.
Yeah.
And once that decision's made, they call it designating it non-capital. Yeah. You start dealing with, now it's only life without parole, right? Only.
It's like,
and you're going to have to wait 2, 3, maybe 4 years to get a trial date, let alone the plea offer that you inevitably won't like.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So this slight pivot from that, but I'm sure we'll circle back around. So you were a prosecutor, now you're defense, right?
So I spent about 12 years doing public service, and there was under President Bush 1, enacted this loan forgiveness. If you do public service for 10 years, whether you're a doctor or a nurse, teacher, you can get your either college or professional loans forgiven. So after I did a little more than the 10 years, debt was wiped clean, and
that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
It was very, very, very helpful. And I kind of thought, I don't know if I can continue to do this for another 20 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Especially the special victim stuff. It's
that's
a lot heavier and emotionally challenging to help women and children get through, tough things.
Right.
And so now I'm just, I can take or leave a case as much as I want. Don't have to take a case.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of, private practice, where you don't, as a public defender, as a prosecutor, you don't choose your cases. They're assigned to you by either the court or your boss.
Yeah.
So my caseload kind of fell into special victims cases with John, and enjoyed it, very rewarding, and then eventually mostly homicide cases, and learned a lot. And that's kind of what I bring to the table is, a lot of defense attorneys might start their career 2-3 years trying cases. Very, very good experience. You can't buy that kind of experience.
Right.
But I had nearly 12. And so there's not much I haven't seen, done, put together, or torn apart. And so that really gives you that insight to, what's your worst day in court? Because that's your starting point.
Right.
If we lose this case, this is what's going to happen. Are you willing to run that risk? If so, here's where I think we've got some wiggle room, because, a roll of the dice on life without parole is a tough roll.
Yeah, you got that right.
And it ain't like they don't have a case.
Right.
Right? We're not talking about, the DWI where the officer maybe messed something up.
Mm-hmm.
It's a thorough investigation.
Yeah, I'm like, if they're coming at you with life without parole, they got some stuff.
Generally speaking, they have a heavy hand. And
how do you go from prosecuting the same type of person to flipping over and defending the same type of person? Is that like a cognitive dissonance, or is it just like, hey, you have a job to do and they also deserve the right of freedom or a lower case or whatever?
I think for me, I started my career as a public defender, and I would have never, ever guessed that I would have enjoyed prosecutorial work. It was never something that dawned on me. I tend to want to fight the uphill battle. Mm-hmm. The opportunity came available. I was kind of picked by that office to do what was very necessary at the time. They had nobody that was willing. Nobody really wants to touch those cases. They don't want to investigate them. They don't want to deal with them. And I didn't mind. It was rewarding, and it was the most rewarding. But to answer your question, how can you do that? It's really, people say, it's kind of the last, I think, public figure that people would think of that actually argued both sides was Abraham Lincoln. He was notorious. They've since changed that law. You're not allowed to do that. You can't represent both sides. Right. But it's just a job, and it's can be lucrative, can be rewarding. Mm-hmm. But you're helping people regardless of which side you're on, right, in one of the most high stress, difficult situations that any human could ever find themselves in. Right. Sure. Aside from, the regular breaking and entering, the low level stuff, maybe simple possession of drugs. Mm. You're talking about some heavy stuff, shooting cases, stabbings, murders, sexual assaults. I mean, there's a lot on the line.
Oh. How long have you had your practice for?
So I opened up shop technically August of 24, probably didn't start taking clients until like October. I wanted to kind of get the infrastructure solidified, and from running a business that even, I said earlier, best laid plans usually don't always work out. And so I tried to create a kind of structure that would allow for success, and eventually brought in staff. And it was really scary to have to pay someone's salary.
Right, exactly. Like, I had to hold another level of commitment and everything else.
Way scarier than being in the courtroom. I mean, making sure that their payroll is covered and that money's coming in and that they're going to get paid. I mean, it's one thing if I don't get paid.
Right. Yeah.
Huge frustrating. But for them, it's like, hey, wait a second.
Everything. Yeah.
Right.
Which is not what, like, people see the things and they hear like, oh, well, I had to pay this much for a lawyer. I had to pay this much or whatnot. but all they think is that one person, and they're not thinking like, well, the lawyer still has to pay the HR, they got to pay the paralegal, they got to do the research. Like, you're doing so much work on the back end to try and get them that favorable situation.
And one of the things I try to do, and on my website, I made very clear that I will work with folks. I'm very flexible. Now, it's always to an extent. Mm-hmm. If your case is set out inevitably years, we can work on something. But if you hire me at the last minute, I can't just show up on hopes and dreams.
Yes.
The biggest kind of, I guess, parallel that I would use, especially for lawyers, is it's similar to, paying a famous artist for their work, right? There's that famous kind of story where, like, Van Gogh or somebody drew a little thing on a napkin, hands it to someone. He's like, that'll be $2,000. They're like, it took you 2 minutes. He said, no, it took me 15 years to be able to do that.
Interesting.
And so you're paying for the experience. I mean, and I think a lot of times people think that the higher the price, the better the quality. Could be, but more often than not, there's some middle ground. And I think that there's a lot of good lawyers in this community. There's few that have the experience that I have, or, there's probably a handful in this community that can say that they've worked on both sides to the extent that I have. And, it does cost a lot of money. I had a attorney friend ages ago. He had a tattoo of Lady Justice on his arm, and it was a little distasteful, but it had a sash around her chest, and on that sash it said, how much justice can you afford?
True. Yeah, unfortunately.
It is an unfortunate part of our society because no one really thinks about it. When you go to the doctor, you either have insurance or you don't.
Yes.
Right.
But they won't turn you away. If you go to the hospital, they can't not give you medical treatment. That's not the same in our criminal justice system, and it wasn't that long ago that you did not necessarily have the right to an attorney if you couldn't afford one. That was in the 60s and 70s. Dang. And before that, if you were charged of a crime, you weren't given a public defender. That is a new concept that was kind of interpreted, that how could we possibly say you have the right to an attorney if you're
can't afford one.
What we call indigent, poor, can't afford one. And it's so complicated. How could you defend yourself if you didn't have that kind of money? So the advent of the public defender's office is a huge help to the system in and of itself, because it helps move cases along the tracks, but also gives folks that don't have the ability to afford an attorney have high quality, trained, professional legal services at their, I can't reiterate enough, having that opportunity is so important, because going it alone is probably, for most people, like unimaginable.
Yeah.
Right. That's wild. Where was I going with my next question with that? Do you have one?
I'm going to ask a silly question.
Yeah.
So
I like silly questions.
Heavy assumption. You went to NC State?
I did. Hence most people wouldn't wear this unless they went there or their parents went there.
Yes.
I don't root for them, but out of choice.
Okay. So is that where you did your undergrad? Where'd you go to?
Campbell.
Oh, nice.
At that time, we had not yet moved to Raleigh. They were in Bowie's Creek.
Yeah. Oh, I know where Bowie's Creek is.
And my third year, we moved to Raleigh, and it really gave that university was known for being, good trial attorneys.
Yeah.
It elevated their exposure immensely. Now they are the closest to the Capitol, so you can work with the Court of Appeals, the Supreme Court, work in that Raleigh justice system, and it gives people hands-on experience that none of the other schools really have. Even Chapel Hill and Duke aren't as close as now Campbell. They're literally like 2 blocks from the Capitol.
Oh, no way.
I didn't know it was that close.
I didn't realize that either.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's pretty sick. I've had quite a few of my clients went to Campbell for law school, and I know Campbell for law and pharmacy. And that's a great thing when a school that a lot of people consider small is able to do that much and has a big footprint.
Huge footprint in North Carolina for sure. I think almost all of my colleagues, I would say 80%, graduates of Campbell.
Yeah.
And especially in the trial attorney realm. You've got folks that do insurance defense or other types of real estate or corporate litigation, no, sure.
Right.
But the ones that you see in the courtrooms or walking with the briefcases, those are, for the most part, Campbell grads.
Wow. I remember the question I was going to ask you. It's a simple question, too. Do you practice in New Hanover County or Brunswick County?
I actually have cases all over the state. I've had a murder in Durham that got dismissed. I've got one in Wake pending. I've got one in Onslow. I have one in Sampson. I have one in Wilson.
Oh, wow.
I have one in Pender, 3 or 4 in New Hanover, probably 5 or 6 in Brunswick, Columbus, Bladen area.
Oh, wow.
And so I have a lot of work in that area. They opened a public defender's office very recently, like within the last 2 years.
Okay.
And as a result, a lot of the people who used to be on the what's called the public defender list, they'd volunteer to help with court-appointed work. Okay. There's no attorneys left. And so they all now work at the public defender's office, which is a good thing.
Right. Yeah.
But then there's conflict cases. For instance, they can't represent multiple defendants in the same case. So if there's co-defendants, they've inherently got a conflict of interest because they might point their fingers at each other.
Yeah.
More often than not, they will. And so they farm those out. And because I worked down there for so long, and the now chief public defender was a former colleague of mine, I'm happy to volunteer and take a lot of that. And because there's no one else, I've got quite a big caseload of court-appointed work down there.
Wow.
On top of most murder cases can't afford an attorney.
Right.
So almost, for my caseload, all of those are court-appointed, but that's through Raleigh, Durham area. There's a specific office that handles the entire state's first-degree murder cases. So if you're charged with first degree, it goes first to the Capitol Defender's Office, and then they have a list all across the state of people willing to do it.
Oh, wow. You said you had a murder case that got dismissed. That probably doesn't happen often, right?
No, it was very, very rewarding. It was the very first one into my private practice.
Oh, wow.
And so it was the first one I got. It was the first one it was an older case that I inherited, so it had a trial date coming up. And I'll tell you what, Durham is a different animal.
Really?
I'm not surprised.
I mean, ain't no snitches in Durham. I mean,
Really?
there were probably 20 people that saw what happened, and all of them said, I ain't see nothing. And, normally, eventually, someone comes forward, not a soul.
No.
Wow.
And so literally they had no choice but to dismiss it. And it was still a fight. I mean, my client was in custody for almost 4 years waiting for his trial date.
Geez.
Now, he's also in federal custody on a separate charge, but neither here nor there. Unrelated to the homicide, but that dismissal didn't necessarily spring him free. He still had some time left on his federal case. Yeah. But we walked out with that dismissal, and that is hanging on my wall in the office.
I'm sure.
First-degree murder, and not many attorneys could say they've done that. Now, there's criminal defense attorneys out there that might say that there's a little asterisk next to that win. You didn't hear not guilty. I'll take a dismissal over not guilty any day.
It's the same.
That's before
same outcome.
you roll that dice.
Yep. Exactly.
So, question. Once it's been established that they're like, hey, this is first degree, while you're there, are you able to try and fight to get it lower?
Sure. And because first degree has only 2 punishments, and if they're not proceeding capital punishment, which is the rarity, so they're proceeding life without parole, there's always room for negotiation.
Okay.
So the first thing you'd start with was second degree, and you'd work your way down, depending on the facts, maybe voluntarily or voluntary, involuntary, all the way down to some sort of assault. Obviously, that's going to be very uncommon, given the gravity of the accusation. Mm-hmm. But most of those are resolved with a second-degree plea, because if you plead to the first, there is only but one sentence you can get, so there's no incentive to do that. Gotcha. So usually second, and it's a term of years. Usually, if you had no record, you'd be looking at 20 to 25 years. Jeez. If you had accumulated a long history, you might be looking at 40 to 60 years. Some of my clients in their 40s and 50s might look at that and say, I might as well take it to trial. Yeah. Life without parole is the same to me.
Right.
And that's the thing, like you were saying, like a 22-year-old is like, you can't comprehend what life looks like.
And by the way, these people aren't making good decisions.
Yeah.
Right? No, that's not in their
It's the judge making that decision.
No, but like the reason they're there.
Oh, okay.
They don't make good decisions through life. So now you're asking them to make a very hard decision.
Exactly.
And if the 2 options are, because this is more often than not the fight I'm in. And I've got one right now in Pender County, first-degree murder, attempted murder, and a bunch of unrelated cases while he was in jail. We are very close to a trial date, which also brings together more pressing plea negotiations. Mm-hmm. And we're in the range of getting a 20 to 25-year deal on the table, and my client has insisted that he'd rather, it's all the same to him, and it's not. Mm-mm. It's not the same. No. And it's hard. Those are hard conversations. Yes. When there's a built-in distrust of the system, hence like the distrust of me. Yeah. When you're not hiring an attorney. It's been appointed, you're part of the system, you're out to get me. I mean, these folks are, for the most part, mentally ill, poverty-stricken, throw on top of that, like, inherently bad decision makers.
Yeah. If it was a federal case, are the prosecutors the same North Carolina prosecutors, or they bring different people in for that?
Completely separate entity and jurisdiction. So in federal, and I'm sworn but don't practice, in federal court, you've got what's called, instead of an assistant district attorney or district attorney, you'll have what's called an assistant United States attorney, so an AUSA. Okay. Yeah. And those are the prosecutors. And then you've got, same thing, defense attorneys, public defenders in that system as well. And generally speaking, the stakes are much higher because think about the power and wealth of the state. Yes. Right. Power and wealth of the federal government, and they don't bring cases that they might lose. Right. The exception to that rule is those kind of notoriety ones, but they still got something.
Right.
It ain't, going to be a not guilty.
Yeah. I think it was like 5 or 6 years ago. I got called for jury duty, and I showed up, and then like something just felt weird about it. I was like, this doesn't seem like jury duty like typical people have. And then I get in there, and they're like, this is for a federal case. And I was like, oh, crap. I didn't get chosen, but
if you get a federal jury duty, like your time between being called is longer, yeah, because those cases are longer, right? Typically.
Yes and no. I mean, it just depends on the case, but for the most part, there's more to it. So there's just going to be a lot more. I think the best way to describe it is like it's more formal. Yeah. So there's district court, which is kind of like your misdemeanor, a lot less formal. Superior court, where all your felonies are resolved, a little bit more formal. Right. Federal court, very formal. Rules apply very strictly. Yeah. And you wouldn't want to fool around if you didn't know what you were doing there.
It was neat, though, because I got to sit in like on all the voir dire while they were choosing the jury and everything. So I thought that was really neat, like watching them go back and forth and everything like that. And like the people that they did choose and didn't choose, it was kind of interesting to me because there's one guy who got up there. I'm like, oh, they're going to send this guy home. And they chose him. And I was like, whoa, weird. So
often depends on the case. I mean, sometimes you'd think you wouldn't want lawyers on there, especially a criminal defense attorney. Right. But on the other hand, it might be very helpful to have someone with that. For instance, in a financial case, if there's a CPA called to the box, that's going to be super helpful because now I can glance over some of the technicalities. Yeah. As long as I can, focus my presentation of evidence to the technicalities to that one juror, make sure that that's thorough for that person because now they get to have those conversations and explain any confusion amongst the jurors if they're deliberating. And so depending on the nature of the case, you might pick different jurors for different reasons.
Got you.
Yeah, that's neat. Yeah, going back to criminals don't typically make good decisions. The one guy, the only reason why it turned into a federal case is because it was a child trafficking case. And one time out of like the years he was doing it, he took the child to South Carolina. And then federal. And I was like, oh, interesting. It's really stupid. Like, you're doing something stupid anyway, and you made it even more stupid. Like, congratulations. But yeah, the one guy who got chose, I live in Brunswick County. So this guy was super, like, backwoods Brunswick County. And he got up there, and they're like, is there any reason why you wouldn't make it to court? And he was like, if my mama tell me I can't come to court. And they're like, no, sir. If the judge tells you not to come to court, you don't come to court. If the judge tells you to come to court, you come to court. And he was like, she ain't my mama. And I was like, oh no, what is happening here?
Speaking of some funny iterations of that, a long time ago, early in my career, I was in Brunswick District Court. A guy was addressing the judge. The judge was asking, where's your lawyer? All these, typical stuff. And the guy was dressed in a Bud Light T-shirt and jeans. And the judge kind of looked at him. He was like, "Sir, I'm looking at the docket, and you're charged with DWI. Did you think that T-shirt was a good idea to wear to court today?" And without missing a beat, this man looked at that judge and said, "Makes you thirsty, don't it?"
Oh, no. Oh. Guilty.
I mean, you're asking for trouble. He had a good sense of humor and probably caught himself, but yeah, that was a fine line.
Yeah.
Stuff like that happens all the time. The amount of kind of funny stories that happen in those stressful arenas I could write a book.
It makes me laugh too, because I'm from here, born and raised. I've gotten I think one ticket where I had to show up in court, and I go to Brunswick County, and I did what my mom told me to do. I found the one tie and button up I had, and I showed up, and I'm waiting in line with 200 people because they're just like, "What's your case? What's your case? Cool. Nope. Show up. Whatever." And I'm like, why am I the only one of 15 people with the tie on? Everyone else is in here just this is my outfit that I wore today.
It makes a difference, right? No matter what line of business you're in, dressing well for the occasion can make the difference between, different outcomes. I did a post on my social media months ago that it could make the difference between, a good or a bad plea, or, the judge giving you the benefit of the doubt one day and not. Right. There is so much that can be gained by putting on, and it doesn't have to be a fancy suit, right? It doesn't have to be a $10,000 Gucci or Armani suit. Right. It could be the best outfit you have, and if that is, happens to be jeans and some sort of beat-up polo, iron it.
Yeah.
Right. Make sure your collar's down. If you have a tie, tie it.
Yeah.
And tuck in your shirt. That, unfortunately, might be your best outfit. It looks a heck of a lot better than, untucked, no tie, your shirt's unbuttoned and all wrinkled. Yeah. It can make the difference between a good outcome and a really bad one.
They see that you're trying. They can tell a difference between, if I showed up in, a T-shirt and jeans or, untucked, and okay, versus even putting on a tie with a polo, which most of us are going to be that looks horrible. But from a outsider's perspective, I'm oh, you at least tried. You weren't able to get a button up, but you at least had a polo that you had. You were trying to look as dressed as possible.
They're showing up that it looks like it's important to you.
Yes.
I'm sure it makes a difference.
That's the biggest difference. And it always reminds me of this story. One of the judges in New Hanover, this was ages and ages ago, it was a similar traffic court, so everyone's kind of queued up, and big crowd. And one kid had to be either early college or late high school. I mean, the 18, 19-year-old had a full tux on. Oh, full tuxedo. And the judge was like, "Come up here, sir." I thought he was going to ridicule him. He goes, "I'm assuming, sir, that that's the nicest outfit you had, and I'm going to thank you for taking this seriously. You're a little overdressed for the occasion, but I assume that you're doing this because this is your best outfit." And the kid kind of nodded his head, and he, had everybody in the crowd take notice, and then encouraged the DA, "Why don't we help this young man get out of here?" Right? Wow. The DA doesn't have to do it, but
right.
You look that brings a little good luck your way. And so, again, you don't have to have a $10,000 suit or a tuxedo on, but whatever your nicest outfit is, I call them church clothes.
Yes.
Yeah. I tell my clients, put on your church clothes. And if you don't know what that means, the nicest fit you got.
Yeah. Is that the same? Do you say church clothes up north?
Mm-mm. I grew up north, and that's not a saying, but I've been down there a long time.
That's what. Because as soon as I was thinking that, I was like, "Well, you're putting on your best," and in my head, I'm like, "Your Sunday's best." That's, but I know that up north, they have different.
But if you said
it's different sayings, different religions, someone's are gonna.
But if you said church clothes up north, they would know. Everybody knows what that means. Right. It's a little bit of a Southernism, but everybody knows what church clothes are. Nice. You want to look nice in church, as you should in court, whether it's a traffic ticket or DWI or something far more heavy. It makes a difference, and people take you more seriously not necessarily the quality of your clothes, but the quality of your outfit, that you know, are groomed, your hair's combed, things like that.
You're putting in the effort.
I know we talked a lot about like murder cases on here, but what's your typical case that you have? I can't imagine it's mostly murder, right? Or is it?
Volume-wise, no, but I've got far more murders than probably any private attorney has, because you know, I've been doing it 16 years in Wilmington.
Yeah.
This is where I started my legal. After graduating Campbell in Raleigh, I came to Wilmington, and I've been here ever since. And so it started to grow into like the southern part, and then north. Having a caseload of 10 or 11 murders is far too many. But
seems like a lot.
Since I was here early in my career, I've seen the guys and the women who handled those cases disappear, either from retirement, moving their career along, or just quite frankly being too, you know, whatever their reason is, they've decided that they don't want to do those anymore. And the quality of the attorney has dipped. It's a lot of work to work a murder case. It takes years. I'm telling you, 4 or 5 years, probably minimum, before you get to trial in most places. New Hanover is kind of the exception. I would say 2 to 3 years on average. But, I mean, and they're sitting in jail, you know, banging, I want more updates. There's nothing to update you, man. They got their case. You're waiting for trial or a plea. And so to answer your question, that is a big part of my caseload, but violent crime and drug trafficking is probably the more volume. And it took about 6 or 7 months from opening my door to having like a huge retained caseload. And so now I'm like kind of on the fence about how much public service I want to continue to do, because I do get paid for it. I mean, it's very minimal hourly rate, so it's not keeps the lights on, but it's also very enjoyable to give back and to continue to give back to the community. And some of the cases, you know, I don't submit fee apps in because it's maybe 2 or 3 hours worth of work. It's not worth doing it. And helping the community and the people that need it the most is enjoyable still. But it also didn't really think it would happen, but most of my Pender County cases, I had an inmate client there that was appointed, told everybody in that jail how good they and how much they loved me. Within like a month, I had the entire female population hire me, which was only like 6, but it was very rewarding to hear that commentary get back to me and then show up in the form of, you know, money and trust. Because those two things, you know, the money is nice, but like obviously they trust me to do a good job from, you know, someone that they probably shouldn't trust, but you know, they get word of mouth quick. So on the flip side, when I was a public defender, if you had a bad day in court, man, all your clients at the jail, man, I heard you screwed up. I heard you're the worst lawyer.
Gosh.
Well, I bet that guy didn't tell you how guilty he was.
Of course he did. Exactly. He wasn't like, well, I did leave a full handprint right next to the body, and I spit in their face. Like, we left too many things.
I've got a violent crime case right now where literally I've had it since, I think, August of last year. Have the discovery probably 2 or 3 months ago, and the client's, you know, just complaining. His family calls 10 times a day. You know, what's an update? He's on video committing a shooting. They've got him running around the house with an AK, you know, style gun, trying to hide it in some bushes, which they found. And, you know, 3 witnesses that saw him do it. Sir.
Oh, no.
Just calm down. There's nothing that's going to speed this up that's going to help you.
Yeah, that's going to be a benefit.
and I just, that sometimes is the difference between an appointed and a retained client, not because there's a difference in how I treat them, but I find that, like, the vast majority that either can hire you or their family hires you is a lot more reasonable in their expectations. And I think it's because they grew up in a different, you know, lifestyle.
Yeah.
You know, they are at least a little bit more formally educated. The ones that, you know, are at the bottom of the poverty levels probably dropped out in 2nd grade, which is devastating when you hear that. You're like, oh, you didn't even get to middle school?
Exactly. That's crazy.
Like, can you count?
Yeah.
A lot of them can't tell time or make change.
Oh, wow.
And so you're asking them to make complicated, difficult decisions, and they haven't ever done that.
Yeah.
Other than making very adult decisions in the community that brought them to
bad
this
outcomes.
position. Yeah. Which is crazy. So like in the county, like, cause I'm from New Hanover County, you don't think that like anybody wouldn't make it out or wouldn't at least get through middle school. But then when you go outwards into spots where like,
especially rural parts.
Yeah. The rural parts where like their families might need them to come help at the house, help around the farm,
where they don't
or
have
do
families.
something.
Good point.
Then they're lost. So, like I said,
a lot of our
everyone
criminal
gets a
justice
chance.
system problems could be solved with resources being reallocated towards education and after-school programs. The reality is a lot of these people, back to the square one, are not bad people.
No.
They've made bad decisions, dealt a bad hand, and they're usually suffer from undiagnosed mental health issues, substance abuse issues as well. Those almost always overlap. And it's really sad to see the ones that come through like the revolving door. So many of my clients I saw, 5-10 years ago, and they pop back up and you're just like, man, you never really had a chance. And here we are. And sometimes they're disappointed and embarrassed, and sometimes they haven't learned their lesson. And so,
yeah. And what's the only thing you know? I mean, it's hard to learn a lesson to do something that you don't know exists out there, or you don't think it exists for you out there.
and I think politically speaking, people shy away from that conversation, right? Like no elected politician or person trying to get elected is going to say, we should defund
Something.
that. Immediately they're like, oh my God.
Right.
And it's like, no. We're going to move the money to house inmates and use it to prevent the need for inmates.
Yes.
Not taking away from them to give, handouts.
Right.
Yeah.
It's to help make sure that these kids who didn't ask for this life have an opportunity to not get in trouble and not see the lifestyle that keeps drawing them in. And I think the rural parts of this county are less and less. But you talk about Brunswick, Bladen, Columbus, you talk about Pender, you talk about, north of here. It's devastatingly poor.
Yeah.
And these folks don't have much else going on.
So you're running for DA or judge anytime soon?
They had a messy DA election here in New Hanover recently. They've got a messy one that should be decided in the next, I think, Tuesday down there. And no, thank you. Yeah. No, thank you. I make more money now and get to pick my hours for the most part.
Good point.
You couldn't drag me back into that fight.
Yeah, because we had Rebecca on.
Yeah. During the last.
Yeah, during the last one. And then just like, and I know Ben well, I know John, like I hang with those groups and stuff, so I got to meet him a few times. Like, I don't know how they do that. Like, it's one heck of a job.
And their job is more administrative. I mean, they come in and try the biggest cases, but they ain't working them. Right. I mean, I worked those cases for John. I mean, I put those cases together, and then he came in a week before it was time to do the fun stuff and took all the fun stuff away from me, and I had to do all the technical work. But that's the, beauty. And I think for him, I can't speak for Ben, but dropping in to handle the biggest cases is his job. Yes, the rest is politics and managing an office. And so, when you get to that level of success and importance, you can't handle that stuff. You have to find good people to do it for you. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens with that race down in Brunswick and that whole area, because there's someone running from within the office, and then there's someone running that's from outside the office. Yeah. And so it'll be very interesting for those folks that work there. If it turns out the other way, what are they going to do? Yeah. Inevitably, some people are going to have to move on.
Right. Exactly.
And as a defense attorney, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, good point.
If there's a big change in guard, chaos is our friend.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Definitely helps.
It's crazy, too, that you were saying that the large volume is drug cases. So, like, obviously, I'm not into drugs or anything like that. So I don't.
I brought a whole bunch.
Oh, okay, good to know. Like, I don't see it around here because that's not the group I hang out with. But it's crazy because knowing that it is a port city, that there is a lot of drugs that are coming in and out of here, that there is that type of caseload for it.
I think the craziest part that I've seen in my career is the cycle of types of drugs. So when I started off, crack was just weaning away. Powder was still, prevalent amongst, I think, wealthier groups.
Right.
You start talking about dope coming in as a kind of street drug, but then also grew into the wealthy communities as a result of the Oxycontin stuff. So now you've got pain medication, pills being sold as street drugs. When those dry up, back to heroin, now fentanyl, and then now meth. Methamphetamine is the big drug right now, not crack. And so when I talk to colleagues of mine that maybe 10 or 15 years older, they're like, oh yeah, meth was huge, in the 80s. And you're just like, oh my God. It just cycles through, and depending on the availability, it starts to flood, right? Yep. And then the market dictates cheap, expensive, and then eventually it just shifts. At some point when stuff becomes unavailable, the next best thing that's available and flooded the market, then the price skyrockets. So it's very interesting micro and macroeconomics applied to the street drug level. Yeah. But yeah, there's always going to be a problem, and that's not going away. People want to use and abuse drugs, and it's as almost old as the oldest profession itself. Yeah, people are going to do it, and it gives me work, it gives the community work, but it's rampant everywhere. It's not unique to New Hanover, and I think where I was in Columbus, a lot of the stuff that was coming through was out of Mexico, so there was a lot of cartel drugs running because they're closer to 95.
Yeah, right.
And so up here we don't have as much cartel activity, but it's coming down from either Baltimore, New York, Raleigh, but it's, snaking its way down, and it's not as big volume.
Oh, that's interesting. I was talking to people, I guess it was probably a couple of years ago, and they were involved in illicit drug use and stuff, and they're like, oh no, I've completely stopped doing that since fentanyl came to the scene, because they're like, the odds of fentanyl being laced in something is much higher now, I guess is what they said, and they're like, I'm not willing to take that risk. And I was like, well, I mean, if there's one way to stop using drugs, if that's the way you're going to do it,
it is a bizarre drug. Now, the best I can tell as far as secondhand information from clients that are addicted. I had a client ages and ages ago that was in jail long enough to get, detox. Mm-hmm. And plea offer came that it was going to be probation, so she was going to get out. And I looked at her and literally said, I'm worried about you. You're going to get out, and you're going to get some drugs and put it in your arm, and you're going to, because now your tolerance is going to be low. You're going to overdose. And she was like, oh, I won't. And then she just kind of changed her demeanor entirely and looked me right in the eye, and she was like, oh, I'm going to. And I was like, what? And she's like, you don't understand how good it feels. As soon as I get out, I'm definitely doing it. I was like,
oh, wow.
And I can't tell the judge this.
Yeah, you can't.
No. And I was just like, ma'am, isn't there more to life than, and she was like, you just don't understand. So I don't. I've never done it. Don't plan on doing it. Don't want to do it, but it is got a pull, apparently.
Wild.
Sheesh.
I can't even imagine.
And like you said, it's a roll of the dice. You could taste some form of, and not even be looking for it, and there it is, and folks are in over their heads.
Oh, so quickly. It explains why Heisenberg was so rich.
Right.
Yeah. Breaking Bad. I mean, that was a great show, and the spinoff too. I mean, I trying to do a little bit of the marketing to adopt a little bit of the Better Call Saul mentality, because to me, criminal defense attorneys have a bad rap in and of itself. So you might as well embrace it. And, I'm always asked, how can you possibly represent someone that's guilty? And my, go-to answer is none of my clients are guilty. Not a single one. Nope. Because the reality is the state hadn't proven it yet. Nope. But the better answer is I was a prosecutor. I was far more scared of convicting an innocent person than I'll ever be of beating a case and a guilty person get let free, because it's so rare.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never really had that experience, but I always questioned, do I know that this person's guilty, that I'm trying to put in prison either for the rest of their life or on a sex case for 90 years?
Right.
Because those are the verdicts that I would get on child cases, they'd get lit up. And I, only pursued the ones I knew in my heart, and the evidence would show that they were guilty, because I don't know if I could sleep at night putting away an innocent person.
Right.
That's harder to me than defending the guilty, because the vast majority of them aren't bad people. I mean, there's a few. There are a few.
Right.
But again, the vast majority of them are just bad decision makers, and they didn't have good cards.
I was the same way too at first. It was like, oh, I don't know how like a defense attorney could like ever do this. And then I started watching some of these cases, like the bigger ones, and some of them that you can like watch locally that are smaller. I was like, you know what? Like, everyone deserves a fair shake at this, and there's a lot of people that didn't. And it's like, so
that's what I always like was drawn to, is kind of the standing up for the little guy, because if not me, then who? And there are other good attorneys for sure, and they wouldn't be helpless. Mm-hmm. But if we all chose to ignore that need and didn't provide that service, there would be a halt in the justice system. I mean, you need defense attorneys to be able to explain that spectrum that I talked about earlier, right? Like your best day in court, your worst day in court, and what I think we can accomplish without really moving fully ahead with rolling the dice to see what that outcome might be. Right. I always tell my clients, there's only a few things that are certain: death, taxes, and if you take a plea, if you plead guilty, you will be found guilty. Right. If we go to trial, I don't know what's going to happen. Right. I can tell you based on my experience what I think will happen, but I don't know. Yeah. And if you're willing to take that risk, so am I. But let me suggest a better path, because this is not an unreasonable offer. You know, it may feel unreasonable, but I told you your best day. It's better than your best day. Sure. If their offer is better than our best day, why don't we take that? Take it. Again, it goes back to making bad decisions.
Yeah, you're not. Yeah. So, question: in this line of business, obviously success is going to be like winning like 99% of your cases. But outside of that, what would success look like?
So the opposite, right? Okay. Most of my cases are losers. Okay. Right? 99% of my cases are going to result in a plea of guilty to some extent. Now, there are occasions with lower level things, accusations with people, a spousal dispute that gets out of hand. We're looking for a dismissal. They don't need to be part of the justice system. They've got the resources to handle some of these things on their own, maybe anger management and mental health treatment. But vast majority of my clients will tender a plea of guilty at some point. Winning, twofold: getting the best outcome. The best outcome doesn't necessarily mean the best, plea. What can you live with? What's your risk aversion? Mm-hmm. And do you feel like your attorney gave you the confidence, gave you as much information as possible to make the best and most informed decision, and you felt confident in that attorney being truthful with you, that gave you the confidence to make that decision? You'll never know if it was the right one. I tell them all the time, there is no right decision because we don't know what's going to happen. But I think this is a wise choice. This minimizes your risk, and it's a certain deal. Mm-hmm. So, winning is fun. Hearing not guilty on a big case is enjoyable. Making money is different for me coming from public service. I like it. Right. But the reality is having clients, genuinely appreciate. Like yesterday I went to visit a client on a Saturday, beautiful day. And he's like, why are you coming on a Saturday? I was like, because this is a big decision you have to make. And I want you to know that I care enough to come see you on a Saturday. Yeah. He was like, well, you don't have to waste your time. I said, it's not wasting my time. You have a big decision to make, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have, whether they're good questions or bad questions. I want you to feel like you have enough information to make this hard choice, because this is one of the few things I can't choose for you. I cannot choose whether you plead guilty, and I cannot choose whether you testify. Everything else I have kind of control over, but I can't make those decisions for you. Only you can do that, and it's a hard choice to make when you're looking at decades potentially in prison versus their expectations, question mark. Yeah. What do they expect? And trying to have a realistic conversation with somebody that's facing that is hard. I'm not a social worker. I don't know. And I try not to manipulate them, but they feel manipulated. And they have a general distrust of the system. And so it's enjoyable to know that you've helped, and it's enjoyable to know that you might have given them perspective that maybe another attorney wouldn't have given them, that they feel confident with you by their side.
Yeah. Nice.
Quick question before my last question. When a case does go to trial, is it generally advisable not to testify? Or is it?
That has shifted over time for me. So
Okay.
Originally in my career, I would have flat out said, if you have any criminal history, I don't want you up there. So a defendant's criminal record is not admissible in the state's case in chief.
Right.
Unless they testify, and only then if it's used to prove that they might not be telling the truth. So they can't just use, something that's real old, like 10, 15 years ago, and say, well, weren't you charged with or convicted of this?
No.
It has to be within 10 years or tend to prove or disprove like their trustworthiness, their credibility. So obviously if they have fraud crimes on their record, that's going to, vast majority of my clients charged with violent crime got a violent crime history. Yeah. So if we're going with the defense of it wasn't me, and they don't have any evidence, really that it was him, it's strong circumstantial only, getting up there and testifying to your bull side of the story, and them going ahead and hearing like, oh, let me read off all this stuff you've done in the last 4 years. Not helpful. Flip side of that I've learned is no matter how many times we beat this dead horse, which is my client doesn't have to testify. My client, we don't have anything to prove to you. There are certain cases that jury wants to hear the other side of the coin. And if it's a circumstantial case, I go with less likely. I don't really think it's advisable that you testify. If it's like they've linked it all together, it's not a whodunit, it's a what you call it. For instance, if it's a sex case and there's an allegation that it was non-consensual versus consensual, you got to go tell your side of the story, and they want to hear from you. If it's self-defense, obviously, they want to hear that side of the story. And so even if you had a record, I think that it would be advisable most of the time that it's at least given some serious thought. It's shifted, I think, then from my earlier career when I would have hands down said, not a good idea.
Yeah.
Plus, most of my clients back then were all court appointed. Not the best articulation of things. Oh. And so their side of the story was always very foolish. And I was like, that story is not good. It actually doesn't explain anything, so let's go with nothing is better than that story.
Yeah, makes sense.
That's funny.
All right, so my actual last question then, since Chris asked kind of a forward-looking question, looking back, if you were to tell your younger self one thing, what would it be?
Be patient. I think one of the things I've learned recently, and I'm 43, say within the last 2 years, I have learned that I don't have to fight every fight, and I don't have to win every battle. John David told me that a long, long, long time ago, and I heard it, and I tried to implement it, but it didn't really sit well. And so I had found a lot of success by being very aggressive. And because of my role, often getting my teeth kicked in a little bit because I didn't mind being, shot down.
Right.
I'm going to keep grabbing for that straw. I have found that being a lot more meticulous and patient and quiet has been more productive and more successful than to always be like the loud, aggressive, pound on your chest type of approach. Yeah. And it's better for my mental health. Yeah. One of the things that I've struggled with my whole career, especially on the prosecution side, was adopting their emotional baggage. And it's almost impossible, which is why there's such a burnout rate, whether you're a court-appointed attorney, whether you're a prosecutor. But doing special victims cases, for sure, feeling a part of that child or woman's struggle was hard.
Yeah.
And it definitely played a toll on my personal life and professional life, but I wouldn't change it. But I would tell my younger self that patience will be a virtue, and it would serve you well to be more patient.
Yeah.
That's great. It's a good one.
So if someone might need your services, where could they find you?
So obviously, CapeFearCriminalDefense.com. We've got a website on there. You can request a consultation. Social media, Cape Fear Defense on Instagram. I think one thing that's changed over time is that people aren't necessarily going on Google as much as they are social media platforms. So we're trying to build out, without being too cheesy, the TikTok and the Instagram. And so my legal assistant's a lot younger and she's a little bit more savvy. And so we try to keep that content fresh. And I've got a marketing team that kind of puts the more static stuff out there so people are aware. It's hard to track that stuff. I mean, whether people are reaching you through that medium or through a different medium, most of it's word of mouth. And so, I always encourage my clientele, if you were pleased with what you got, tell your friends and your family, because anybody in our community could be facing, serious allegations, allegedly. Right. And, I try to take an approach where there's no case too big or too small. There's nobody that's money is the only factor in being able to hire me. And so I try to be mindful that some folks might not be able to afford me. Yeah. But if they give me the confidence that they maybe feel comfortable with me and confident with me and they really wish they could, we'll figure out a way. Because money is not everything. It helps, but that's not why I became a lawyer. And helping people is very enjoyable. Making money is secondary.
Awesome. Love it.
So I just want to thank you for coming on.
Oh, thank you for having me. Yeah. It's wonderful.
It was fun.
Have a great setup.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I got to ask some silly questions. Oh, my last silly question for you. Are you a socks or no socks kind of person when it comes to shoes?
Both.
Okay.
It's nice out today, so I went no socks. But I used to wear like the funky socks that were all the craze for a while. Mm-hmm. And I've gotten a lot of feedback from jurors from that. They were always, we were wondering what kind of socks you'd wear today. Then it kind of struck me. I was like, I wish you were paying closer attention to the case.
Yeah.
Right.
But sometimes I don't want them to pay close attention to the case. So both. It just depends. Okay. I think if I'm in superior court, which is, if I'm in trial, for sure I'm wearing socks. I mean, I'm also wearing like a dark navy suit and a white shirt. But day to day, just depends on the weather. I like the no socks, especially here in southeastern North Carolina.
Yeah. I'm kind of jealous.
What about you?
I can't do the no socks. My feet sweat too much. I wish. I've tried it a few times
today.
If I was wearing tennis shoes or sneakers, I would for sure wear socks. Okay. I think it's only with some dress shoes. Okay. And I think a higher quality dress shoe, you would find that your feet would be better served without the socks. Because the leather will, shrink and kind of expand as long as you keep, the shoehorn in there when you're done. Good high quality leather, and it doesn't have to be like a $1,000 shoe. I'm talking $250. You'd enjoy it because it's a lot more comfortable than like kind of slipping.
The slipping and sliding, yeah.
Good point.
Learn something new.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here to help.
Yeah. All different ways of helping.
For sure.
What'd you think
I thought the bourbon was fantastic. Good. I told you before we started recording that my brother-in-law's a big Penelope fan. And so I haven't tried this iteration or any of the Project X. Yeah. It's very good.
These are the ones I tell you, like, if you see it, you should grab a bottle because it definitely is going to have a different flavor than, like, the traditional series.
It's got a little bit of spice, but it's definitely not overwhelming. It's still very smooth, and it's not hot.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like it's one of those high-proof ones, if it is.
I mean, it is over 100.
113.
It does not taste it.
Yeah. So, shout out. Penelope.
Tastes even better after it's been opened up a little bit.
For sure.
Yeah, it's very good.
If you ever want to sponsor us or send us a bottle.
Right.
Holler at your boy.
Penny, I'm down for it. But yeah, thank you for coming on.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for listening. Like, comment, share, subscribe. We'll catch you in the next one.
Cheers.
Cheers.